Here's the 0-2 pitch. Kirk bounces one up the middle. Betts to the bag. Over to first to beat the champ. You gotta knock him out. The Dodgers stand tall and win back-to-back titles.
Not another video defending the Dodgers. Can't you see they're ruining baseball? That's probably what you just said after seeing the title of this video. Yes, the Dodgers became the first team in a quarter century to repeat as champions. Yes, they have the highest payroll in the sport. And yes, they have, on paper, the best team in the league. So, random stranger on the internet, riddle me this. How exactly did the Dodgers, by participating in arguably the greatest World Series in the modern era, ruin baseball? Well, if you haven't clicked off by now and you want to hear the facts, let's break down exactly how the Dodgers got into this position, and no, the answer isn't just money. When the Dodgers were purchased by the Guggenheim Group, led by Mark Walter and Magic Johnson, they were an organization with a rich history and a track record of making it to the postseason. But they hadn't won the World Series in more than 20 years at that point, and Dodger fans didn't have reason to believe in the organization really threatening to return to the summit. But as I've documented before, they began laying the foundation for success they've experienced to this point. Andrew Friedman, the architect behind the 2008 Tampa Bay Rays, who famously made their way to the World Series on a shoestring budget, was hired to lead Los Angeles into a new era of Dodger baseball. Dave Roberts, who only had a few years of coaching experience at that time, was hired to be the next manager after Don Mattingly and the Dodgers mutually agreed to part ways following the 2015 season. And slowly, the pieces started to come together. Young prospects like Corey Seager, Jock Peterson, and Cody Bellinger made their big league debuts. Reclamation projects like Chris Taylor and Justin Turner established themselves in the lineup, and a rotation led by Clayton Kershaw was ready to take the next step. It looked like Los Angeles finally had a team ready to win it all. After reaching the NLDS in 2015 and NLCS in 2016, the Dodgers were primed to break through sooner than later. And in 2017, they came oh so close to doing just that. But as we know, a certain team from Houston and their army of cameras and trash cans had to ruin the party. The Dodgers were on the wrong end of the biggest cheating scandal in the sport in over 100 years, and their return to the summit would have to wait. But after losing in the World Series in their own building in back-to-back years, the Dodgers were officially angry. Not just disappointed, not just upset. Angry. After a shock exit in the 2019 NLDS to the eventual World Series champion Washington Nationals, the Dodgers pulled off one of the biggest trades in baseball history when they acquired Mookie Betts and David Price from the Red Sox for a package that included Alex Verdugo, Connor Wong, and Jeter Downs. Rather than extending 2018 AL MVP Betts to a long-term contract, the Sox jettisoned their best player to the Dodgers along with David Price and his massive contract. Pundits didn't exactly look at that trade favorably at the time, and in the 6 seasons following the trade, Mookie Betts has more World Series titles than the Red Sox have postseason appearances. Ouch. The Dodgers were simply in the right place at the right time to acquire a generational talent. They didn't do anything other than put their name in the hat for Betts, and in the process, they pulled off a massive deal that paid dividends immediately. But it didn't just stop there. At the 2021 trade deadline, the then defending champion Dodgers made another big splash in the form of Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. But despite pulling off yet another blockbuster move, the Dodgers came up just that little bit short in 2021 when they lost to the Braves in the NLCS. And as I've documented way too much on this channel, the Braves and Freddie Freeman's time together came to an abrupt end. With Betts and Freeman on the roster, the Dodgers excelled in the regular season. 111 wins in 2022, 100 wins with a transitioning roster in 2023, but in both of those years, the Dodgers were bounced in the NLDS. Despite coming up short in 21, 22, and 23, the Dodgers landed the most coveted free agent of all time in the form of one Shohei Ohtani. The contract, as we know, is staggering. 10 years, $700 million. We also know that Ohtani will be paid just $2 million per season until his contract expires. after which he'll be paid the remaining $680 million the next 10 years after. The deferrals weren't exactly met with widespread adoration from the league or from rival fans. How could they get away with not paying the guy? Is that even legal? Yes it is. Because deferrals aren't new. Not in baseball, not in any sport. We, as the general public, aren't privy to the specific language in these mega deals. For all you know, your favorite player could have millions in deferred money written into their contract. What was also pretty widely reported was Ohtani offering this same payment structure to the 3 other teams in the running for his services, including his most recent team, the Angels. Those teams had the opportunity to sign Ohtani, but Ohtani chose the Dodgers, and you cannot with a straight face tell me it was because of the money. So why the Dodgers? Why? It's because the Dodgers have consistently shown their willingness to bring in talent from any possible source, not just free agency. The Dodger roster isn't just made up of the 26 most expensive players in history. Sure, having money to the extent they do helps you sign and retain players like Yamamoto and Betts and Freeman and Ohtani, but if you take a closer look at the Dodger roster in 2024 and 2025, you'll see players like Max Muncy and Chris Taylor and Walker Buehler and Teoscar Hernandez and Kike Hernandez and Will Smith and on and on and on. The Dodgers don't just spend. They find players who possess the skill set to be elite and get the best out of those players. Muncy was cast aside by the A's and now has the most postseason home runs of any player in Dodger history. Will Smith, Walker Buehler, and Kike Hernandez were all drafted and developed by the Dodgers. Teoscar Hernandez was signed to a 1-year prove-it deal that he parlayed into a career-best 2024 season. The Dodgers are built on so much more than just money in the form of payroll. They built their organization in a sustainable way from top to bottom. And in turn, they draw in massive crowds on a nightly basis, even if everyone gets to the stadium late and maybe leaves a little early, because trust me, LA traffic is real, and this comes from a guy from Atlanta. The Red Sox could have re-signed Mookie Betts and kept him in Boston. The Braves could have re-signed Freeman. The Angels could have re-signed Ohtani. Teams not named the Dodgers, believe it or not, do have a lot of money. They just choose to allocate it in ways that keep their owners rich and their teams profitable. I'm no Dodger fan, but I can only look at this rationally as a case where one man's trash is another man's treasure. The Dodgers aren't the only team to employ analytics heavily throughout the organization. The Dodgers aren't the only team with a $300+ million payroll, and I'm sure the gap between them and the Mets won't be as steep entering 2026. The Dodgers aren't the only team who draw in 50,000 plus on a nightly basis. The Dodgers aren't the only team in baseball worth billions, but they're certainly best in class at getting the most bang for their buck. So to answer the original question, are the Dodgers ruining baseball? The answer is no. Firmly, comprehensively, and unquestionably, no. The Dodgers winning the World Series in back-to-back years is only bad for stingy owners focused on their P&Ls rather than their empty trophy cabinets. There is no reason a team like the Cubs, who play in one of the top 5 biggest markets in the country, should have a payroll anywhere near league average. There's no reason why the Yankees shouldn't be competitive in luring the best and brightest to choose the pinstripes over the 29 other teams. Because they're the Yankees. In fact, I'd go a step further and say the Dodgers aren't ruining baseball, they're invariably good for the sport. Why? Because nothing brings people together like a common enemy. For the last 5 or so years, baseball's public enemy number 1 was the Astros because they cheated. Now, it's the Dodgers because they're just so damn good. And also, they're behaving exactly like a big market defending champion should. They're reinvesting the money from their winnings to make the team better so they can win more. There's no excuse for not reinvesting postseason revenue back into the product, and kudos to the Blue Jays for getting right back on the horse and signing Dylan Cease to a 7-year, $210 million deal just a month after losing a heartbreaking Game 7. I haven't even mentioned the fact that the Dodgers didn't just steamroll the competition on their way to defending the title. While the Reds and Brewers didn't put up much of a fight, The Dodgers needed a lot of luck to beat the Phillies, and they needed a couple mistakes in big moments by the Blue Jays to win the World Series. The Jays were 2 outs away from winning it all. That doesn't sound like the Dodgers ruined the sport to me. A 7-game thriller of a series doesn't sound like a ruined sport. That sounds like one team had every opportunity to get the job done, but just didn't. That's just baseball, isn't it? I know this conversation about the Dodgers ruining baseball sounds scary, particularly as the possibility of a lockout following 2026 grows by the day. But let's be honest with ourselves. The Dodgers can't ruin the sport by themselves. Ruining the sport would imply there's no point watching the games because the ending is a foregone conclusion. But that's what makes sports, and particularly this one, compelling. The games are played on the field, not on paper. Baseball will always be immune to the super team, because no matter how much you spend and no matter how many stars you have on your team, you still have to prove yourself every game, every inning, every at-bat, and every pitch. That's all for now. Let me know if I'm just full of crap and don't know ball, but if we're being honest, you know I'm right. You're probably just upset your team isn't doing the same thing as the Dodgers because, honestly, I know I am too. But if you enjoyed today's video, a like is greatly appreciated, and make sure you subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.